Yeah, God bless internet gambling is where we're starting. That's not where we're starting.
You don't gamble, do you?
I don't. I am super bad at it. Like I'm no good. So
Addictive.
I probably have been in up to 5 casinos, but I'm not sure. Likely is more like 3, but I'm just hedging my bets and saying 5.
It's funny you're betting on your.
Yeah, so hedging my bets here. And I mean, I can barely remember. I've never spent more than I think $40. I've never walked out with any dollars.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
yeah, I'm bad at it. I'm just not good. We used to play with a buddy of mine. He was so my friend in high school's dad, wealthy dude, had a whole casino set up in his basement, 2 full-size blackjack tables, roulette wheel, craps table. And we'd just play for fun. Occasionally he would pull out piles of cash and we'd play like we were going to keep it. He did let us keep it a few times. Like I said, he was crazy rich. The other fun thing was he had a real slot machine. And he just had a bucket of, it must have been $300-$400 worth of quarters sitting next to it.
Display.
And anybody can play anytime. And if somebody hits a jackpot, they get to win whatever comes out. They get to keep it.
That's a good friend to have.
He's just an interesting dude. He was addicted to gambling, to the point where they had to sort of like divide his life. He had this guy, I can't remember his name now. Shoot, he was a really nice guy. His business manager basically had like a separate set of credentials for him. Like, here's your passport. Give me your wallet that's got these credit cards and your driver's license in it. And then this wallet has the cards that you can use to gamble. And he would fly out, spend a weekend. I think he used to charter jets. Dude, lived a different life than I'm living. So, anyways, missions. Fun little interlude there. You're welcome. Fun little life of Pastor Luke growing
I'm
up.
sure there's missions in a casino.
Oh, for sure.
I do remember one conversation. I was complaining about being at a casino. I'm like, I can't believe it. This guy sat next to me for like 6 hours straight. Oh, I was sitting there for 6 hours straight. I had a lot of former students that have worked at casinos, and they have some horror stories.
Oh, I imagine.
Just sad.
Yeah.
People don't go to the bathroom enough. But that shows you how addictive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about being addicted to being on mission.
Yeah.
There's a good segue.
Transition, Dan. Nicely done. Yeah, so mission work. We had a guy from Mission Central this weekend preach for us. Awesome dude. Reverend Dr. Brent Smith.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great. His energy is just fun to watch.
And he's low key about it too. Like,
Yeah.
he's so matter of fact.
Yep.
Like, yeah, God's awesome. And he's doing great things.
Yeah,
You
and
be part of it? That's cool. If you don't, it's still going to go on.
right. And so it's probably useful to kind of start by saying there's a difference between when we talk about, like, yes, every one of us is a missionary and the United States is a mission field. But when you say the word missions, people automatically think foreign mission. And that's okay. I think that's,
Or mission trip.
yeah, a mission trip. And
We'll talk
that's
about that a little
that's
bit.
what we're going to talk. That's what I'm planning on. And if maybe we work our way back to we're all in the mission field,
Okay.
local missions, whatever.
We'll talk about the bad stuff first.
Yeah,
Let's
well,
talk about the good stuff first.
I think we should talk about the wrong way to do missions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the bad
Yeah,
stuff.
the bad stuff. And everybody's always excited about doing a mission trip, like you were saying. And
done.
yeah, I know, I have too. I've done the bad ones.
Me too.
And I would say there's a lot of different symptoms and characteristics of a bad mission trip, but there's a core element. And the core element is the concept of a short-term mission and the idea of that it can be a short-term, temporary, quick thing and do some real good is a false premise.
Yes, very false.
Now, that doesn't mean you can't do short-term missions.
But they're hard to do right.
Very hard to do right. Well, I should say that they're super easy to do wrong.
Yeah, most of them are.
But like, I don't know if it's hard to. It takes a little bit more time, a little bit more homework, but I don't actually think it's that much harder once you get the concepts down.
but then you, from what I learned from you and from reading Toxic Charity, which is a book everybody should read before you ever go on a mission trip, or When Helping Hurts. Those reference your net. You are, if you're concerned truly about the long-term human development aspect of mission work, which is what we should be. The church has been negatively damaging to many a culture because we don't think that way. But the key is, are you partnering with people who are doing that?
Yes.
Are you with people who are in the relationships, boots on the ground, know the lay of the land, and you know your role, and they know their role, and you let the people who you're trying to help take the lead of what you're trying to do, which is totally backwards the way we think in the West.
Yes. We decide in advance in our minds what we're going to do. We get there, we do it, regardless of whether the people there want it to be done or need it to be done.
Because rich people from the suburbs have life figured out.
Yes.
And we have much to offer the rest of humanity. That's our premise.
We have much to offer other suburbs in our local community.
And my primary motivation is me.
Yep.
And me feeling good about myself.
Seen it countless
times.
times.
These are so awful, and so that's me. I've done it. It's bad.
And I see it. It's a very natural thing when it's because it's an American thing. When I'm over on a mission trip, a short-term mission, when things aren't going, we're planning to leave at 8:00. It's now 11:30, and nobody's moving, and we're getting ready to order lunch. Right? People get antsy, and they're like, "I want to get out there and start doing things." Like, whoa. So this would scratch your itch if we got out there and started doing something. So this would help you. Yes. Okay, good. Let's talk about helping you. No, let's forget about that. We're here in Africa or somewhere else. Let's talk about making you feel better. That's kind of a rude way to say it, but it is the truth. So there you go.
But the word we're using, and I think you've helped me make this distinction: mission trip. Okay, so missionaries. Paul's missionary journeys, they are first and foremost about the gospel, the spreading of the gospel. There's been many a mission trip I've been on that had almost no element of the gospel, talking to people, building relationships, or sharing the gospel. It was primarily about me mixing cement and me doing labor in a really poor way compared to the people that lived there could do it. It was, I'm like, this is a service trip. For me to sweat a little and maybe put somebody out of work and make me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
And it hurts me to say those things, but that's what I've been. But then there's elements that were great. They were relationship building. There was the gospel. Faith was grown in me and in others. Okay, so it's not all bad.
Right.
But the crux of when you say mission trip, I'm like, so are you truly going to share the gospel primarily in relationship, human development? And most of the times the answer is no.
No, we're going to go paint a school. I read this awesome article that had nothing to do with Jesus and the church, but it was about it was a social article about gap years, how a lot of college kids take a gap year.
Oh, AmeriCorps. That's the big thing now.
Yeah, and so this reporter, the person who wrote the article, did a deep dive with some of these places where they go, and it was constantly, over and over again, giant headache. These groups come in, gap year students, and they paint the walls of a school that have been painted every year by one of these groups. It actually takes them time and energy and resources to coordinate them to come down and paint the stupid wall that, again, they could probably pay a local $100 to paint the whole school versus this group that spends $40,000 on all of them flying down and accommodations, all of that. And the people can say it over and over again. But the problem is that brings so much money and resource. It's essentially like tourism.
Yes.
And
it
that's
is tourism, and it's in its own economy.
Yeah. It's like benevolent tourism or feel good about yourself. I did a good thing tourism. So you feel like you did, man, it's so great that you painted this school. Look, we did a great thing, and it's nice here in the Dominican Republic, and it's sunny, and later we're going to hit the beach too, because you can only work till about 5 o'clock anyways, and we're going to stay an extra week after we're done.
I resemble
I know, dude. I know. I get it.
Reading those books has hurt me. It still hurts me. And so I've advised a lot of my friends and relationships that I have with them. I'm like, you really should read this book. I was just in Florida visiting my cousin. Every Friday or once a month, their students go out and serve the community. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's part of their kind of their vision, mission stuff. They want to be servants to the community. Great. And I kind of like that they were the servant. They weren't there to be missionaries. And that distinction, and is even a service event going to hurt the people you're helping? Again, you have to be aware. And who are you partnering with? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it to just teach your kids to be servants? Okay, that's an okay thing. But they better be first and foremost aware of, is my serving going to hurt the people that I'm trying to help?
Right.
That would be, wow, if you could teach kids in a school, imagine how the church, the next generation, would approach all of this.
Right.
That would be, I don't know.
So the way to do it right.
I've only known this, I've only been aware for like a year.
Right.
I'm 49 years old.
But you took to it really fast. You read the first book and you're like, but this makes sense. And I was like, oh, I know. I didn't write the book.
I know you didn't, but some really smart people did.
Yeah, I read the book. That's all. That's how I knew about it. I read the book. Yes, so the way to do it right is to connect with a local community, and that can be hard. I mean, if you just want to be like, we're gonna throw a dart at the world map, and wherever it lands, we're going there. Well, you don't know people there. So what we have that is incredibly valuable are these long-term missionaries who live there and do the work to build the relationship. And what we're really doing is we are supplementing their work, encouraging that work. We specifically, our congregation, Living Faith, make sure we get back to the same communities over and over again. We see the same people. We know these people.
It's a generational.
Yes. We don't do a different village every year in Africa. We've done a few different ones and ended up kind of landing in this spot. And we decided we're going to put roots down in our mission work here. Same with the camps that we go to, the refugee camps. We've put down some roots. We know these people. When we arrive, they recognize us. We always make it a point, and it's interesting because it's somewhat disappointing to the people and somewhat encouraging to the people that about half of our team are veterans and half are newbies every year that we go. Because they're excited because they recognize this face. But then sometimes they're like, oh, I miss the one kid a couple of years ago was just adorable. She goes, "Where's Miss Morgan? Morgan Halifax?" Oh. And she was remembered her was like, "Oh, she didn't come back," and it's kind of sad. But then she got to meet a couple of new kids. So
you might want to tell everybody the two big mission fields in Kenya because they may not be completely unaware what you're talking about.
Sure. So we started, and actually this is how we jumped into it. Was we have Kenyans here in our church in Clive, Iowa, and got to know them. And after about 2 years of us praying together and being together in fellowship, they started talking about, you've got to come back and meet our families and our people in Marunga. And after 7 years, I think it was about 7. No, it was less than that.
Yeah, because you've been in a relationship over there for 10 years, right?
No, not 10 years, but probably 6 or 7. Yeah, so it was probably 2 to 3 years in. We did our first trip essentially to that town to meet them and incorporated LCMS long-term missionaries in Kenya into that trip. So we had this connect the dot there, and we started going every single year back to the same place, seeing the same people. As people were added to the work that we were doing there, it just kind of continued to grow, but we can encourage them specifically. We can come back the next year and say, hey, remember that project that you were working on with this? How is that going? Oh, well, we discovered X, but it's on them.
It's their project.
It's their project, yeah.
It's their, is it the Tumaini?
Yeah, Empowerment Center. So then they had their idea was to buy a shipping container, cut some holes in it, and turn it into a library. So it's their project. They know that the school needs a library. They know that it would serve the greater community. They just don't have any books, and they would love to have especially kids' books in English. We rally together here. We bring over hundreds and hundreds of children's books, some other things that they. So we're
I just donated all mine to the school.
so we equip them with the things that are difficult for them to procure or cost a lot of money. But we didn't just be like, we showed up like, what you need to do is start a library. Because I had no idea. Like, I don't know they need a library. In fact, so here's some early mistakes I made. First trip, I think, first or second time we went to Marunga, I bust my tail and worked hard to find a bunch of Swahili small catechisms and Bibles. And I brought them, and I was like, I got it in one of your languages. And they mostly speak Kikuyu, but also all of them really know Swahili. And I was like, look what great thing I did. I got you what you, I'm sure, have always wanted, were these materials in your native language. And they were super grateful and gracious, and then said, next time, could you maybe bring English ones? Because we want to learn English, and this would be great to practice. And I was like,
we got some of those right in that
see,
cabinet.
yeah. I literally have a dozen or two just laying around my office 3,000 miles away. But I didn't start with, hey, what do you need? I started with, I think I know what they need. I'm going to do this thing. You're welcome. And it was like,
So now you require everybody to read books, like,
yes.
before they can go.
And see, I'd already read those books, and I knew that. It's still that
It's still hard to get over
simple. It's
yourself.
that easy to fall into the trap of, oh man, that's a good idea, and I just didn't double check.
So my pendulum reaction after hearing that is, I'm just going to do nothing because I don't want to hurt anybody, which again is a not good thing.
Yeah.
Because then it's an excuse to not do things. So now, what do I do? How do I help? How do I not hurt? It's not, and if it is primarily about the gospel and eternal life and the kingdom to come, but we also care now about people and matter and nature, and it's an and both. What intentional things can you do in your community or wherever that, because we want the most bang for our buck.
Yes.
Because we're essentially, we don't want to just waste our time.
Capitalist economy.
Yes, exactly.
Number one resource is time.
So we want a return on investment, as they even say in the book. We're very like, what's your return on investment? What are you going to do there? What are you going to accomplish? You're like, bring the Holy Spirit?
I warn people every time, newbies, when they go, I go, the toughest thing is going to be, you're going to say to people in the next 6-8 months before we go, I'm going on a mission trip to Kenya, and they're going to respond with, what are you going to do? And your answer is, tell people about Jesus. And the follow-up question they have is, yeah, but what are you going to do? And it is going to frustrate the crap out of you because it's going to happen over and over again. Say, well,
come on, Pastor, what do you do?
I tell people about Jesus.
I tell people about Jesus. Really? That's a thing?
It's a real thing. If you look in the Bible, all of the evangelists and missionaries, there's no record of Paul ever painting a school in all of the New Testament. He told
did make
people
his own tents.
He did make his own tents. He did.
So he could, if there wasn't a church that supported him,
right?
He needed some cash to live on.
So the way to successfully have what I would call a successful mission trip is you have to start by saying this is going to take way longer than I think it is. It's not one trip. It is begin the process of building relationships where you're going. And the first trip, you're really probably not going to accomplish as much as you think, except that you've planted a seed where the second trip, you've now fulfilled something. And people look at you and say, we hear this all the time, you came back. Like, thank you for coming back.
From what you told me, in that culture, that is huge.
Yes.
And it is long. Their culture is more about relationships than ours.
More, yeah.
And so, relational capital, we'll call it, it needs to be built, and it takes longer there than it does here. There's an expectation that it is like, okay, how many times do you have to show up here before I'm like, oh, you're really going to show up?
Yeah, and there's this added and subtracted element to doing a short-term trip. Because on the one hand, maybe you've got 10 days, and that's not a real long time to build a relationship. But what's additive to it is they recognize you spent a lot of resources, and it's a giant pain, because it is, to you take off work to arrange things at home so kids are okay, get on a plane, travel there sucks. It's hard to do that. And they look at it and go, you live in these mansions, which if you don't think you live in a mansion, you do. I don't care who you are. Go to a refugee camp. It's definitely a mansion.
It's still warm.
Yeah, you're in a mansion. And they go, you walked away from that to be here. So like on the one hand, you don't have time, so like the relationship scale kind of dips, but then you did all of this just to be there with them and talk to them about the most important things of faith and life and hope and all that, and then it jumps back up. And then when you come back, then it skyrockets. Because they're like, you didn't get scared and run away. Like you lived in the way discomfort of this refugee camp with us for 10 days, and you decided to come back. So yeah, I'll see you next year. So then it's like your relationships, the bonding.
Till COVID hits.
Till COVID hits. It's the longest I've ever been not in Kenya, like a year and a half.
You're going this year?
I do not anticipate that we're going to be able to go.
Because they're just behind the curve always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So vaccines are not coming soon to Kenya, I'm just guessing.
I don't think so. I would be joyously surprised if we were able to go. But so even when we did the Marunga thing a little bit more uniquely than the other one. That one, like normally we have these long-term missionaries in places, and it's not just Africa. I mean, like Brent showed us, it is all over the world. We've got these missionaries, and if you're going to do a short-term mission, you connect with one of them, and there's directors of short-term mission in I think every country, and then they in advance have done some relationship building. So they get to hold, and for us it was Shara, for Shawan Trump and Shara Cunningham. Osidro, sorry if you're watching this. I know you got married, I forget. Osiro, whatever. Michael's fine. He's such a nice guy. I like him a lot. Anyways, they have gone to these places, met with these people, developed some relationships over the years that they've lived there, and then when we show up, it's like Shara gets to say, "These are my friends." So relationships happen way quicker.
But if you just showed up, well, that wouldn't happen.
No.
But how many years has she been a missionary there? Or in general, the LCMS?
Boy, I think it's 30 years.
Yeah, so that's.
I don't think she was in South Africa before Kenya. Sorry about this. I got a little right there. Basically forever. She is, I think, the second longest tenured missionary in the LCMS. And the longest one was that lady we saw who's 62 or something like that, still in the mission field.
Yes, the one in China?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty darn cool.
We don't saint people in our church, but
Yeah, we should. That one, like make an exception or two. But she's not dead, so I guess we gotta wait a little longer.
Yeah, and she have 3 miracles in her belt.
That's right. We'll see. So it's all about developing that relationship and not just helping out, not just swinging by. Yeah, hey, Jesus loves you, right? Because again, if you don't know them and you do something like that, I mean, a lot of people in difficult circumstances will just, can you, by the way, help me with groceries this week? And it's a disingenuous conversation about faith.
I'm trying to find the notes on When Helping Hurts. Kind of the guiding principles. We talked a little bit about this in another podcast.
But the transition back to the U.S.
Yes.
This mission field. So now you're the long-term missionary. You don't do short-term missions to your neighbors. You live next to them, right? This is not short-term. What does it entail? It entails the same element of building relationships.
And trust, rapport, the ability to even speak into anything, right? It takes time.
Yeah, to say something where, the first time you meet your neighbor and they say, yeah, I work in the technology field, you might say, oh, so I'm having a problem with my router. Could you take a look? And they might be like, no, I, A, don't know you, and B, work in a very different technology than routers, so no is the answer. It's not what I do. but getting to know them and understand who they are, and having now you can say something or ask something with a little bit more authority. If I say something to my neighbors on, system admin technology stuff, my neighbors across the street are tech people. They would shake their heads and be like, "Hey, I'm not going to listen to any advice you give me," and they'd be right to do so.
Yes.
But we had a question come up, really interesting Super Bowl discussion. It was a short one, but it was on ethics and morality kind of stuff. And all the heads in the room turned towards me. And I'm like, yeah, I can say something about this. And you realize over time that I have some expertise. I know what I'm talking about. Same is true in anything with your neighbors. It's going to take time for them to say, oh, this person's faith is a real thing and is genuine. And now I'd like to hear something, or I'm willing to take their thought or their opinion more seriously because I know that.
Mm-hmm. Well, but in our culture is so transient, people don't.
Yeah.
So this makes it harder.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't expect long-term relationships. We don't expect long-term living in a place, deep roots. It's a rare thing now. So, which is counter to what the kingdom looks like in the spreading of the gospel within a family, within a neighborhood, within a culture. So if we are avoiding that, our culture is hard to spread the gospel.
Harder than in Africa.
For sure.
So people don't realize, like, I
When you
don't
tell
know.
me, like, hey, they're going to come and we're going to have a worship service and proclaim the gospel, the town shows up.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen here.
No. I mean, it's... I would love to say this to people. I haven't ever said this, but I would love to say when they go, I just don't know if I could do something like that. Just sounds so far out of my comfort zone. I go, okay, then you can be a missionary and talk to your neighbor next week about Jesus.
Okay,
I'll go to Africa. I'll go to Africa.
I would rather talk to strangers. And I did. I was on an airplane. You know who I ran into? You will love this. Speaking of missionaries. This is so weird. I don't think I told you this. So on the way back, I sit down next to a woman and her daughter. Find out that's the family that inspired Matt to go be a missionary.
No way.
Yes.
What are the odds?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. How trippy is that?
I'm like, really? They're like, oh yeah, we know Paula, and we've been going to them for years. It's suburban people like anybody else. Find out their daughter went to DMAC, knows my old boss.
Oh, that's trippy.
It was so awesome.
Wow. Random person on a plane.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I know that guy and inspired this guy to become a missionary in a really hard place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of cool.
There you go. Yeah. It's actually... It's less dangerous here, I would say. I mean, where Matt's at, and other people, it can be dangerous, but it's not as difficult because the nature of the kingdom and the gospel is so relational, and we are just almost an anti-relational culture to our detriment.
Online church.
Online church. Talked about last week. Yeah, I have this running hypothesis.
How many people will not be here this Sunday when it's 40 below wind chill?
Right?
How about me? I'm preaching.
You're preaching. You better be here.
I'll do it from my living room.
So the reality of our culture being so anti-relational, I have this hypothesis that it's actually the cause, and I think a lot of the cause of our anxiety and depression issues. That exists in other cultures, don't get me wrong, but not like it does here. And I think
And
a lot...
COVID's amped it.
Yes. Oh, and... I mean, hello, it's a live experiment that nobody wanted to sign up for, and we're all doing it. So isolate, don't be around people, kills relationships, suicide skyrocket, mental health issues skyrocket. And I go, right, but we're doing this in like a lower level all the time and have been for decades. So
The volume's been turned up on. How about this year, seasonal depression?
Yeah.
Dark, cold. I'm already in a dark, cold place. Now I'm really in a dark, cold place, and I'm alone. It's dangerous.
So I've friends not happen to be part of this church, but in this area, and they've been having a rough time. So he's going to go see a counselor. She's going to go see a counselor. They're going to see a counselor together. And it was like really a pain to find a counselor.
There's swamped right now.
Yeah. And I've heard that not only from that couple, but from other people I know who are like, I can't get in. I can't get in to see. There's not enough psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists to see.
I've heard the hospitals are flooded in those areas too.
Yeah. Because that's often what happens is mental health escalates into physical problems that put you in the hospital.
Or
Yeah.
Or those wards in the hospitals are full too. I've heard. So it's bad in a lot of levels. The idea of being a missionary here is a very scary. Let's think of the classic church.
Mm-hmm.
And they have their missions board, right? And what are the activities of the mission work of that church?
Yep. See, you've already screwed it up. The
Potluck.
activities, yeah.
Invite the community to, right? I don't know a good way to do these things, but now that I'm like more aware, I'm like,
Honestly,
what's the tactics and strategies that will help spread the gospel in this setting? It is hard, I think.
I think it's hard, but it's simple.
You just got to go talk to somebody.
Be a good person, like a good friend.
Be kind.
Be a good neighbor. Be a good coworker. Be the kind of person that,
Be salt and light.
yeah,
Be
right?
life-giving spirit.
People get to
Instead of
know
sucking the
you.
life out of people.
Yeah, and then they're friends with you, and you have a relationship, and then watch for the opportunities to mention that. Well, I can't go on Sunday. Why? Well, I got church on Sunday.
Why?
Yeah, so like it's an opportunity to, instead of just stopping at, oh, you know what, I got something else going on, don't worry about it. Say, you actually, my family is kind of a church family. We go every week, and they might look at you and be like, you're a churchy person? You're a God person? And you go, well, yeah. And that may be the only conversation you have for 2-3 months. And then again, that's what mission work is like.
Yeah.
And when you talk to people like Matt or other people, it is get to know the person in the market and develop a relationship with that person. I can tell you, oftentimes it's almost like a defeated bummer moment when I do this. One of them was the gas station attendant. I love this guy. Just the chipper, nice guy. He loves the life he has. He's digging it. Salty dude. We've gotten to know each other over the years. I always go to the same gas station now because I kind of hope to see him. Walk in, how you doing? Every now and then he's like, I'll get a cup of coffee in the morning if I run out of coffee at home, and he'll just wave me off. I don't have to pay for it. Love this guy is awesome. So I brought it up. At one point, I was like, yeah, no, I work at a church down the road. Oh, what do you do? I'm a pastor. And I love it because my job is I get to tell people about Jesus all the time. And I think that, whatever I said was short. Like, I like telling people about Jesus. Speech. Yeah. And I think it's the most important thing, whatever. And I was like, this is it. You've just,
bridge the gap.
I'm there. I'm excited. And he's like, oh, I love the Lord. And I was like, yay. No. Like, that conflicted moment where I was like, yay.
Oh, you wanted,
shoot.
You were looking for something in your holster.
Yeah, I know.
You should.
No, I know. I know that I'm dumb and wrong.
Well, I get to work in a workplace where there's opportunities to meet unbelievers. Mm-hmm. And I just had a few conversations with some people who literally don't know anybody who's not a believer. I'm like, whoa, what would that be like? It would be kind of awesome because you're like, wow, I'm going to be in heaven with everybody I know. But then this idea of being on mission,
right,
to seek and save the lost, that all might repent and believe, the Great Commission, baptize, teach. How are we embodying the church to those who don't know them? So I think there's a danger of being in a bubble, or what would you call it?
Yeah, it's like an echo chamber.
Echo chamber of, and then the othering that goes on, the us and the them that goes on. Dangerous.
So I've always said, and it's not really joking, but I think everybody in the church has assumed I was joking, and that is, everybody needs to be friends with a felon. Everybody needs to be friends with a felon, and I'm friends with a couple of felons, and they're Christians. So it's not as though
You're cheating.
yeah. I'm not saying that if you're a felon, you're not a Christian. What I'm saying is to get to know somebody that probably has a very diverse experience and background, very different from what I went through. Never been to prison. I've never been in that kind of a situation, caught up in hard drugs. But I know somebody who has, and I've gotten to be friendly with them, and I'm good friends with them. And I now kind of understand that culture a little bit, so that there are other times when it's just easier for me to talk to somebody who I would, without that experience, maybe other, and be like, ooh. But it's, if you're just kind of more comfortable. This last week, I was in Kansas City doing some dumb stuff, and I don't want to talk about it. I needed to stop at a gas station really quick, and the one I stopped at was sketchy. But in Kansas City, there's not a lot of gas stations. Bars in all the windows. It was just looking at it.
You
were
were the weird one.
yeah. And I walk in, and guy behind the counter, super nice guy, looked like a felon. I'm telling you, looked like a felon. A little tattoo, teardrops and stuff. Nice guy. I chatted with him for a little bit. Told him what I was doing. He thought it was cool.
All right.
Yeah, that's as much witness as I got, because I don't live in Kansas City, but I was not at all wigged out by it because I know felons, and lots of them are really good people. So there you go. Know a felon.
Didn't Matt used to do prison ministry?
Yes, another good one. I've always
That would be a mission field.
yeah. I talk about a captive audience. Ew.
Captain, the law has already done its work. It's ready for the gospel. It's teed up.
Right now we're definitely getting some comments about dad jokes, but whatever.
We're dads.
We're dads. All my jokes are dad jokes, technically. Which isn't itself a dad joke.
After Brent was here Sunday, and then been talking. I'm very excited about the opportunity about going on a good mission trip at some point in the future. That excites me.
Yep.
I'm enthralled with the idea. Actually, I've loved all the trips. Don't get me wrong, all the trips, even if they were toxic ones, I enjoyed them. I did, because they were just. It gets you out of your comfort zone. It makes you think differently about the world. It's reflective about what your motivations are, good and bad. It's building relationships with new cultures. It makes you critically analyze your own better, which is what we always downplay and discard suburban America, because there's good and bad. But it helps you get on the outside, so you're a little more self-aware of your biases and where you're erring, and it's just nice to get away. So, you know what? I found out Matthew McConaughey did this on purpose, and I'm starting to read his book a little bit.
I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, he purposely went to Africa multiple times where nobody knew him. He wanted to go where nobody knew him.
Yeah,
and just be a human. Because he doesn't get to do that anymore.
Right.
Same thing in South America. He did the same thing. And you meeting a bunch of people and building relationships. I have to get through the book.
Yeah.
Anyway, but that's the idea, that if we have the ability to get outside, this is a cool time to be alive. I mean, you couldn't do this in the past. Like, you just lived within 20 miles of where you grew up.
Right.
Now we can actually go out and experience. Like, I was in Mexico, and I'm like talking to people from Canada, talking to people from France, talking to people from Dominican, talking to people from Mexico, California, this whole other country. Very interesting, very diverse, intriguing, multiple religions. I had, Jehovah's Witness and other Christian denominations and atheists, and I love those experiences.
Oh,
yeah. You know me, I'm not a guy who's afraid to engage.
Right.
And
Clearly.
I love hearing about people's stories and their motivations and where they're at, and then have I used to shun the pastor card, especially when I first started.
Yeah.
I was forming and the identity thing, and now I'm like it's a great way. So how did I know that they were missionaries and that they'd done that before we even took off? Because
I'm a pastor.
Oh yeah, you know. So then, so I'm trying to take. There's some negatives to it too. I've had some negative experiences, but mostly positive.
Mostly positive. On
So-
occasion, you'll get that look like, "Are you gonna yell at me if I swear?"
Which is why you swear.
Which is why I start with an F-bomb and order a whiskey.
Paul, you're taking that, to be as what does he say?
All things to all people.
All things to all people. I can be a jerk just like the rest of them.
Yeah, I'm good at sinning. Super good.
Yes, you are.
Best.
That's that. I think the idea of mission or being on mission is the antithesis of, I think, it's this church, it's every church. We have a large portion I'm good. God's good. I'm good. I have these relationships and where I can stay very comfortable, insulated, and they're like, "You're shepherding me, Pastor," and then you shepherd them to say, "Be uncomfortable, do something hard."
No.
So I think that's part of our job, is to push people out of their comfort zone a little bit, to have these experiences and these perspectives, get out of their echo chambers. Personally, and to promote people to do that. I think mission trips are a way that can happen if done well.
Yeah. I've actually been debating a summer worship series and calling it Weird, and just kind of walk through what it is.
Called to be weird.
Just weird. No, it's
Are we done?
We'll be done by end of Easter, end of the school year. Summer series is usually a bit different.
I could just do
I could just do
Called to be weird. Jesus freaks.
There you go. I never really liked that band.
I know it's not a.
I don't like any Christian music. Worship music is different. Don't get me wrong, but like Christian bands.
How about the one from the '80s? Heaven, let your light shine down. Whoa.
The only one I can think of is Petra.
It's a top 40 hit.
Oh yeah.
Two sons of a Baptist pastor wrote that.
Yeah.
They did a Glory Day once. It was pretty awesome.
That is cool.
It was jamming. I totally didn't when I heard that song the first time, I'm like, that's a Christian song? Oh yeah, that is. Heaven, let your light shine down. Oh. Yeah, you just didn't think about it when I was in the 80s or whatever.
When you're dancing to it at a club with a girl. Oops. Oopsies.
It's a one-hit wonder.
Yeah. Petra is the one that I knew. My parents bought me a Petra CD, or maybe even a cassette. Boy, I bet it was a cassette. Now that I think about it, because I was listening.
Old, Luke.
I was listening to Guns N' Roses, and they're like, "No, that's the devil's music."
I had that tape too.
Yeah.
Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, Appetite for Destruction. Maybe top 5 best albums ever. I mean,
I'm not arguing.
Fantastic. Metallica Black is up there. The Black Album. I don't know. Anyways, so that's it. It's learn to be in relationship with people. Be a good friend. Be a good neighbor. Be a good coworker. Get to know people, and then look for the opportunities. Don't be shy that you are a believer. That's another one. Is just I know a couple of people who introduce themselves like, "Well, my name is Mike. I'm a carpenter and a child of God," and they just kind of
or their Twitter descriptions.
Yeah.
Or their Facebook thing.
Yeah.
And they describe themselves.
And that's it. It doesn't have to be a long. You just identify that that's a important aspect
of your identity.
Who you are.
And so even in my college classes on my syllabus, who are you? Right. This is who I am, and it's the good thing about postmodern thinking is they have to be okay with you.
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. Oh, you're a Christian. That's wonderful. Even though I'm an atheist. That in this culture though, that's a good thing.
Right.
That you're allowed to be weird or different, and that's actually held as a valuable thing in this culture. You don't have to be a conformist.
Right.
That's anti of communism.
Yes. A whole other line of thought I had just opened up about politics, and I was like, nah, let's not do that.
But that's a good thing. That don't be afraid of your identity. So you and I get to play the pastor card.
Super easy.
But how about just what's the card that, like, I'm trying to think, what was the card I would play before that? Because I got to the conversations.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just longer.
Yeah, and I've almost always had the pastor's card since I was basically an adult. So
should we give everybody a title at the church?
yes, that's a good idea.
Everybody gets a title.
We can call everybody a deacon or a deaconess.
Everybody's on staff.
I'm
Unpaid
Deacon
staff.
Billy. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
And then you can just say, well, I'm this, and I'm also a part-time
Deaconess. I like that. Deacon or deaconess.
deacon or deaconess. Elder.
Evangelist. That's what it
It's
is.
evangelist, yeah.
Evangelist is actually like a category of church worker in Kenya. You'll run into somebody and be like, this is an evangelist. They have a job description. Sometimes they're paid, sometimes they're not. But it's like evangelist.
The ones
pastor.
you told me are evangelists.
Yeah, and it's like they'll introduce themselves as, that's a good idea.
Give everybody a title that they can.
Yeah.
Because that's what we get, is this unintended good benefit of having a title. But honestly, there should be a title for every Christian. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
The evangelist.
But encourage people to introduce themselves as, hi, my name
They're
is
not going to think they're Jesus.
John.
I'm an evangelist.
I'm an actuary and an evangelist.
Yes.
I like it.
So I almost wanted the title back in the day when I used to be the techie guy at DMAC. I wanted technology evangelist. Because that was
Right.
a real title.
Right.
And I kind of was. In a lot of ways.
Preaching the good news of the internet?
Yeah. We can be saved by technology. Some people think this. Yeah, I like.
I'm going to kick that around. It's actually not a bad idea at all. Part of the weird sermon series, I'm sure.
There's got to be.
Something fun.
It's. I don't know.
Something obtuse where somebody has to ask, well, what is that?
I was thinking about this after those plane rides, and I'm like, this comes up, and I have this thing, but I'm like, what could you give to someone so they have this license to just tell people who they are?
Mm-hmm. And then encourage them to do it at least once, because like like you were saying, the first few times it's a little scary.
It took me a while to get over it, get over myself, really.
I remember the first time I really had to do it was I was still a student at the seminary, and I was buying a motorcycle. And I was buying a motorcycle from a kid. Like I was 24 and he was like 22. So like he picked me up to drive to the bike so I could ride the bike back or something like that. So we're in the car together. So like now we have to talk or something. And we'd been talking for a while. And he's like, so what do you do? I was like, well, I'm in class right now. I'm a student. Like I'm trying to avoid, like I go to school. Oh, what are you studying? I'm studying to be a pastor. And he literally goes, no. And I was like, yeah. And I was like sweating at this point. I'm like, please don't ask me an important question. I'm not going to have the right answer. I'm not a pastor yet. Don't ask me anything important. But I distinctly remember that it slowly started to free me up. So that was weird. And then he was like, I'd have never guessed. And I was like, yeah, I get that a lot. And then it was like, yeah, I used to go to church when I was a kid. My parents always made me go. And so like now we're talking about faith in Jesus. And I was like 24 going, holy crap, this is happening.
That was that formation process
that
I just went through 5 years ago.
Yeah. And then like every time I've done that, like it got a little less weird. Like, so we'd have to encourage people, whatever title we give you, you got to toss it out a couple of times and be weirdly uncomfortable. And then it'll just start to work. Mm-hmm. And you just get to say stuff.
Well, like our tech people.
Yeah,
I'm a part-time tech person at my church, or I'm a Christian preschool teacher, or I'm like Joanne. She's the church lady.
No, but
she's
I'm
the
thinking
secretary.
she's the church lady. No, I'm thinking like just for everybody, every member gets a title.
Evangelist.
Because now it's awesome. I'll go to like, for example, in Kansas City last week. At the end of one of the little sessions we did, we ran just to a bar. just grab a beer at the bar nearby where we were staying. So you walk in, sit down, order a beer, chit chat a little bit. We're talking, kind of dead, kind of quiet. Bartender starts chit chatting with us a little bit, and I'm waiting for it. What are you guys here for? Well, it's kind of a church conference. We're pastors. Oh, like now it's fun for me. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about it. Let's drop some F-bombs, drink some whiskey. Let's do it. You guys probably think this is...
Not a good one.
I'm joking. A little bit.
A little bit.
All right. That's good enough. Let's wrap this up. All right. We'll see you guys next week.